Hello and welcome. This is Claudia Sky. And in this video here, I want to address or answer some questions I received in the comment section, which were, how do I cultivate my light body, my inner light? So I will share three ways in which I have cultivated and still cultivate my light body. And just know that none of these were taught to me. I'm not part of a tribe or a society or a cult or anything like this at all. This comes purely from introspection, meditation, and ceremony, being in nature and listening. And then experimenting with what I'm experiencing or hearing or seeing and testing it. And when I find that it creates a positive change, I often bring it to the people I work with and see that that is paralleled in their lives. So I will begin with the one that is, in my eyes, the least empowering. I mean, they're all beautiful and empowering, but there is a certain strength to these practices. And then I'll go to the one in the end that is, I believe, the most potent one. So we can, in a meditation or in a practice, breathe with the aspects of our light body, and I'll just for now name the 7 chakras. The 7 energy centers are part of your light body, and as you know, probably they come in the colors of the rainbow. The root chakra being red, then going up to orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and purple, violet. You can, especially if you're out in a natural setting and not under artificial lights that are often missing certain frequencies, so they're not helpful, they're more harmful. But if you find yourself in a natural setting, it's really potent to do that light, especially if the sun is up, or especially if you are in an area where there's water, because water absorbs and also reflects on the surface the light, so you can literally play or work with the sunlight and breathe into each chakra at a time, maybe 9 times, 18, 27. And by you bringing your awareness into that chakra and perhaps intending or visualizing that color, but you wouldn't have to, you bring energy and that color frequency into it, because your mind is capable of doing that. Wherever you put your awareness, you draw your energy there, and light is a part of that. And so finding a way that works for you, maybe you record your own meditation where you work with the colors, will absolutely shift your energy body and strengthen that. But because of the fact that there's much more to your energy body than these, and your light body, than these energy centers, because there's your central channel and other channels, they all carry light as well. To me, working with the chakras is beautiful, but not as all-inclusive as the other practices are, because they will go everywhere, wherever it's needed. It'll make sense in a moment. The other practice that directly lends itself to cultivating your light body is actually Inner Alchemy. Inner Alchemy, if you haven't seen any of my videos or the ones that I speak to, that Inner Alchemy is a form of somatic healing, where you, for example, use an event or something that triggers you, something that's difficult, ideally something where there's a pattern and it just repeats and repeats and it causes pain in your life. Let's say every time you see your mother-in-law, you get hijacked into your least favorite behavior and you get judgmental and irritated. You can use this this technique. I'll just summarize real quick. So if you have that experience with your mother-in-law, for example, in the moment it happens, or after the fact when something occurred, you can, in your mind's eye, imagine you are with that person and you bring her to mind, and then you scan your body, and when you are actually centered and grounded, you will find a corresponding sensation in your body that holds the neuropeptides, you would say in the Western medical world, or the trauma energy, the energetic component of the original trauma, because there's something she reminds you of. It's not her, it's something older that she stands for. And you project whatever story was in the past onto your mother-in-law, most likely. And in order to really let go of that pattern or no longer experience that. Or let's maybe make it more relevant. Maybe it's a something in your health, something in your financial reality, some struggle pattern. You bring it to mind, you find the sensation in your body, and with the posture of allowing, accepting, patience, witnessing, compassion, unconditional regard, not needing anything to be different, you meet that sensation and you breathe with that until it's gone. And that might sound really easy here, but I can tell you that if you've never done it, it is, I think, crucial that you do it with someone, because otherwise you might do it and feel like that doesn't do anything. But if you do it in a space that's potent and safe, where you can go so deep that you go to the core, you find it, and you release that, that is life-changing. And to do that from the get-go on your own is maybe not impossible, but hard. So don't miss out on this chance. From everything I've learned in over 30 years working in different fields of medicine, that is the most powerful thing I've ever learned, for real. And I do offer that work. So if you're interested in trying out a session and learning that technique and maybe doing a few, then just reach out to me. But this technique of inner alchemy, so where you literally transmute a lower vibration, a dense pattern that's causing pain, that's causing struggle, that keeps you imprisoned into the past and into less of who you are, you literally release that shadow. And whenever you release a shadow aspect, your natural light that is underneath it comes forward. So it's an indirect way of cultivating your light, because every time you release that shadow, more of your light becomes available to you. And in that light is intelligence, is power, is a quality that you're currently not embodying, but you would have available to yourself once you release the shadow. So not only does your life no longer have that trigger and that struggle, but something more that you are now comes forward and gets activated. And that's the beauty of it, because we don't know what it is, but there's so much more to who we are that we could live and die never knowing, never uncovering. So I'm a huge fan of this work. I feel like this should be taught in schools. And it is my attempt currently to reach into the school system. I've taught it to my son when he was 6 or 7 years old. He's doing it, and I can see how it's made him a very strong, resilient person. So inner alchemy definitely lends itself to increasing and cultivating your light body. And I will share with you the most potent way, maybe equally potent, and they're related, but there's another way in which you can cultivate the light body. And in the end, I'll share something that I'd like you to experiment with and maybe give me feedback, because to me, that goes to the source of all of it. But the third technique that I literally relieved the teaching on that in 1 nanosecond download, and I was triggered because it came in biblical language. And at the time, so this is quite a few years back, that wasn't a language that was easy for me to hear. But I heard that, I can't repeat it verbatim, but if we choose to live by the virtues, our light and energy body gets cultivated. And from that, when we really live this way, like this is our practice, this is our commitment, our ability to heal ourselves, to tap into information from the field, from the Akashic record, as well as our ability to powerfully co-create just with energy and consciousness alone, is basically getting stronger and stronger. And that was the exact information that I referenced in the other video. I didn't go into the fact that it would cultivate the light body though. But that I mentioned that the next day, I had just gotten back to going to YouTube or social media a little bit. After a long pause of that, a video by Dr. Robert Gilbert landed in my lap where he talked about a teaching from the Rosicrucians, which was almost verbatim to what I had just received. So there was incredible validation. Because honestly, when I heard it, even though it made sense, I was like, I don't know about this. This seems like so out there, but it is true. So that means then that we decide to live in integrity, in kindness, that we are truthful, that all these things that we can call the virtues are what we're leaning into over being living more on the vice side of life, right? And all these qualities, they exist on a spectrum. Virtue, vice, middle. So we just want to be more on that side of being more respectful, more, so what are virtues? Maybe is a more important question here. A virtue, I began to understand when I really sat with that and I journeyed into the subject. Virtues are actually living divine principles that exist in a higher dimension. And we have them inside of us. We know how to show up in our greatest. These virtues are alive in our energy centers, I found. And when we cultivate them, when we live into them, when we make that harder choice, because sometimes it's very difficult to be in that virtuous choice because it triggers everything inside of us that we've been programmed into, all these shadows that might want to react in a different way, that would want to be more selfish. But if we show up in alignment with the virtues, there is an alignment that happens and a coherence that happens and a strength, an inner strength of character and of light that begins to develop a certain nobility, a sovereignty. And in that cultivation, we experience ourselves as our greater, truer selves, which is a direct reflection of our light body being stronger, more pure, and more connected. Because what happens as you do that, as well as when you do the inner alchemy, if you could see inside your body and you could see energy and light, what I began to see is that when you release a pattern, when you make a choice that is not easy, maybe you're in a room full of people and everybody's having a certain opinion and it just doesn't feel right in your gut and in your heart, you just can't agree with that. And it's not that you think they're wrong, it's just for you to say that would be going against your truth. And so you speak your truth, not in a pushy way, just saying, well, this is true for me right now. To do that, as you can see, it takes a lot of courage. It's one example of living by the virtues. You stay true to what you know deep down is true for you, which means you have to know yourself, and you get to know yourself by asking these questions. What is true for me here? What is my inner guiding system telling me? And when we follow that, especially when the rubber hits the road and we find ourselves in a place where that's uncomfortable, but we know it's true, that's another way of releasing the shadow, because we're overcoming lower densities, lower frequencies, vibrations that are keeping us stuck in a place of victimhood. Because to live in according with the virtues means you're not falling prey to that anymore. You're not blaming, shaming, gossiping, complaining, feeling unworthy. You show up as somebody who chooses to understand and live into their greater potential. That's what happens. And that is why your light body will lead to you beginning to see yourself as a galactic being. What that means is that there is so much more to you than you would understand with this common sort of perspective that all that matters is matter. that all that's real is what you can see and touch. But you tune into higher levels of consciousness, higher dimensions, and you have more perspectives available. You just simply have a greater understanding of a situation. And you have all perspectives. I mean, not all, but you have more and more perspectives. You don't lose the perspectives you had when you were less developed. You see it all. You see it all with compassion. You see it all with a deeper understanding. But you can sort of rise above the temptations of the ego. And because of that, it's easier to then make a choice that is more life-giving and inclusive to all. So the cultivation of your light body means you have to overcome the patterns that keep us stuck in the pain and in the victimhood. And it creates an expansion of your consciousness where things that might have been something you either find interesting or you're not even like considering to be true, suddenly you begin to have awareness and experiences around this that come from within. And you begin to take a concept of the mind into an embodied state of being where it just simply doesn't matter if somebody would disagree. That's totally fine. But it doesn't determine anymore what you know is true for yourself. So again, we have direct cultivation through meditation, visualization, working with the energy centers, the light centers. We have the inner alchemy where we release shadow, specifically in relationship to a trigger or trauma or something difficult, where we indirectly turn on our light because the shadow disappears. And then we have living guided by the virtues, these divine principles that exist for us. To me, they're a compass for the awakening process. They're a roadmap. This is your path. And you find that in a lot of the religious and spiritual teachings, the commandments and so forth. And then you have this other way. Well, I will just say that if you are curious to finding perhaps other ways to cultivate your light body, I would recommend making the sun your best friend, as in you pray with the sun. You're curious about the sun, you relate with the sun, you communicate with and through the sun. And you want to do that with a very open heart and an open mind, like a child that's playing, that just wants to maybe understand more deeply how to show up, how to become more of who they really are, and to understand how far they might be able to go in their human experience. Because the sun is a direct link to source, to God, to the divine. It's our physical representation of the divine in its sort of most complete way, we could say. And so that's something that is well worth exploring. And tell me what you find. And perhaps you know a lot about other practices. I would really like to learn. I'd like to hear from you. It's been a deep exploration in my own life to cultivate my light body, which came out of the blue. I never even thought about it. I never really heard about it. I mean, I knew there were instruments that do light therapy, and that's beautiful, I'm sure. I have not received that. I tend to go more the natural, direct route. But what I can say is that when we do cultivate our light body, these three promises that I heard, the fact that the promise that it held that we would turn on our self-healing capacities to a greater degree, that we would tap into wisdom that is new to us, that just comes from inquiry, and these manifesting abilities, I would say that all of that is accurate. So it's well worth exploring, as it helps us tap into more of who we are, which is where we're going as humanity at this point. And so every single person that tends to their light body, and again, there's the three aspects I see is the understanding, purification and strengthening and the alignment, bringing it together. So the blocks that might separate these centers and other aspects, when everything opens up and connects and communicates again more and more, we experience ourselves in that greater nature. And we might experience things we have seen depicted in churches or in art from different traditions and cultures, because that simply is a reflection of who we are. But these aspects are often dormant, because in the world of pure mind, meaning where we are seduced to live in and from the mind exclusively, which can be so programmed and altered, that tends to be forgotten. But when we have the courage to go back to the heart and unveil our heart and do these practices and stay devoted to that, things begin to open up and to change. That for sure I did not think possible. Thank you for listening. One little addition here, because I'm in fact starting a new group for 9 months to go deeply into these teachings that make up the cultivation of our energy and light body toward greater sovereignty, toward greater freedom, where we actually liberate ourselves from these patterns of guilt, shame, unworthiness, scarcity, all these lower density patterns like victimhood that really thwart our life experience, our energy and dim our light. So if you're interested in going deep in a small group, I'll be beginning that again at the end of March or mid-March. Just check out the link in the description and see if you feel like you're a good fit. And I would love to welcome you in our community. Thank you.